Hey there, this is Arthur Hill, Chief Technical Strategist at TrendInvestorPro.com. It is Friday, October 24th, and you are tuned into the Friday Chart Fix. Thank you very much for joining us. I do appreciate it. So today we're going to dive into three areas that influence an individual stock's performance: the broad market environment, sector performance, and industry group performance. And we'll look at those three, and then we'll show you an industry group that is leading within the technology sector, which is also leading. And then we're going to show you two bullish setups within that group, which happens to be cybersecurity. We've got cup with handle patterns forming in Crowdstrike and Zscaler. Let's look at those charts. So let's look at the broad market environment and one of the leading sectors. First of all, in this chart, we have SPY and QQQ. And you can see that both of these are clearly in strong uptrends. Here's SPY. It hit a 52-week high in October, and it remains well above the rising 200-day SMA. All right, you don't need to know much more than that. If SPY is hitting a 52-week high in the month you're trading and it's above its rising 200-day moving average, there is a bull market somewhere. If we look at QQQ, the same thing. We have new highs here in October and price well above the 200-day moving average. So this tells me that the broad market environment is bullish, or at the very least, there is a bull market somewhere, and there are stocks and industry groups to be found that are outperforming and in strong uptrends. If we look at the sectors, here's XLK. Percentage-wise, it has the biggest gain of all 11 sectors year to date. So it is the leading sector as far as momentum is concerned in 2025. And you look at this price chart here, it hit a 52-week high in October, and it remains above the rising 200-day moving average. So technology is a sector we want to be involved with. And then if we look within the sector, you say, well, is it just a few stocks within technology, or is it broad strength within the sector? And you can see here we have 73.53% of stocks in the sector above their 200-day EMAs. So that to me tells me there is broad strength. Well over 50% of stocks and over 70% are above their 200-day EMAs, and that means the vast majority are in long-term uptrends. So there is broad strength within the sector. So again, this is a sector I want to be involved with. So just to give you an idea of how the other groups stack up relative to technology as far as the percentage of stocks above the 200-day, you can see there is XLK at 73.53%. It's the second strongest of this group. And here we have the 11 sectors, and then we have some major index ETFs or indexes like the S&P 500 and NASDAQ 100 there in the middle. So you can see anything above basically 70%, industrials, healthcare, consumer discretionary, technology, and utilities. These are your leading sectors with the most strength within, because over 70% of stocks within these sectors are above their 200-day EMAs and in long-term uptrends. And you look at utilities, 100%, all components are above their 200-day EMAs and in long-term uptrends. But technology, a very respectable second place there. So this next table here shows year-to-date performance, the percentage change for the 11 sectors and SPY. And you can see in the middle we have SPY, and it's up 14.62% year-to-date. So any sector that is up more than SPY is outperforming or showing more momentum, because percentage change is basically a momentum indicator. It's showing you the gain year to date, and that is showing strength when you're up more than SPY. Industrials are outperforming, communication services outperforming, up 19%, even utilities outperforming. But the king is XLK. XLK is up 24.33% year to date, and the leading sector in the market as far as momentum is concerned. So this is the main commentary page at TrendInvestorPro.com, and this is where we cover the alternative ETFs such as gold and gold miners, uranium and Bitcoin. And we were following the parabolic moves. And with the decline this week, some trailing stops that we put in place were triggered. We have the market regime page, which tells us if we're in a bull or a bear market. And we do stock setups and signals every Wednesday. We've got an aerospace stock that is reversing after a pullback. We've got two leaders within the cybersecurity group. And I even looked at housing and Home Depot this past week. And then earlier on Tuesday, we looked at QQQ and IWM. They are still leading. They're in strong uptrends with recent 52-week highs. And we highlighted 5 bullish patterns in some tech-related ETFs. So check out TrendInvestorPro.com to learn more. So now that we've established that we're in a bull market, that technology is one of the leading sectors, we need to look within technology for individual groups that are leading. And what this is all leading up to is I'm going to pick 2 stocks coming up. And basically we have a bull market, we have technology leading, and within technology, I'm seeing strength actually throughout the whole sector, but I'm highlighting cybersecurity right now. This is the CIBR ETF. You can see the symbol up there at the top. This is a weekly chart showing weekly candlesticks, and we're clearly in a long-term uptrend. You don't need too much to figure that out because prices are moving from the lower left to the upper right. And we had a breakout to 52-week highs there in June, and we hit more 52-week highs over the last few months. So if you're hitting 52-week highs, you're in a long-term uptrend. Price is also well above the rising 40-week moving average. If you look here, as far as traditional technical analysis is concerned, you had a breakout above resistance there, and broken resistance turned into support. And we also had that rising 40-week moving average. So I got a support zone in that 70-72 area. And so as long as we're holding 70, I think the long-term trend is up and strong. And cybersecurity, I would expect to continue higher until this trend reverses. If you look at the indicator window, this is the price relative. It's the CIBR RSP ratio. And this ratio rises when cyber outperforms, as it did in 2023. And then you had a relative correction in 2024. And then it turned back up there at the end of September 2024. And it got above its 40-week moving average. And it's been showing relative strength ever since. Yeah, we haven't hit a 52-week high, but still this price relative is rising. And that shows me that CIBR, cybersecurity, is outperforming the broader market overall. And so that means I want to be looking within this industry group for individual stocks to trade. So now I've got 2 stocks that have formed classic bullish continuation patterns. And this pattern is the cup with handle pattern. It was popularized by William O'Neill of Investors Business Daily, IBD. It's a classic bullish continuation pattern. Now, if it's a continuation pattern, that means it has to form within an existing uptrend. You can't have a continuation pattern, a bullish continuation pattern at least, within a downtrend. Then it would be a reversal pattern. But you can see here's the 200-day moving average, and price is above that rising 200-day moving average. And so then we get a decline to that 200-day moving average, and then a bounce back up to resistance. And that forms the cup. And so that tells me that, okay, we pull back, we surge back to resistance, we hit overhead supply here, and then we pull back again. But instead of pulling back to the 200-day again, this pullback is relatively shallow. And that means buying pressure is coming in at higher prices or selling pressure is subsiding. And that's the first positive because you have a consolidation near the highs. The bulls and bears are slugging it out just below resistance, and the bears are not strong enough to push prices back to the 200-day. The bulls, the buying pressure, is strong enough to keep prices well above the 200-day. And so this is like a consolidation near rim resistance. And the pattern is confirmed when you get a breakout. And that signals that basically demand has been victorious over supply. This is the supply line, the pink line there, and you kept hitting resistance here, and now you've got a breakout working that signals a continuation higher. So you've got a long-term uptrend. This is a consolidation within that uptrend, and the breakout signals a continuation higher. And I would suggest using that rising 200-day as an idea of where you might want to reevaluate as far as that long-term uptrend is concerned. If we look here at the price relative, you can see it turned up there in early September and is rising, so Crowdstrike is outperforming again. Now, I will note that I highlighted this chart in late August because we had a correction to the 200-day. That correction returned to this breakout zone, broken resistance, turned support. You can see that this pullback also retraced around 50% of the prior advance there. So it was a classic setup, and we got a breakout there in late August. And now we got a second pattern, which is the cup with handle, and we've got a breakout working. So Crowdstrike continues to lead within a strong sector and a strong sector and strong industry group. And next we have Zscaler, and Zscaler is another cybersecurity stock. So again, we got a bull market, we got technology leading among the sectors, and within technology, we're seeing strength in cybersecurity. So Zscaler has a lot of wind at its back with those bullish forces supporting it. If you look here at the chart, we had this huge advance, and then we had a correction. And I did highlight Zscaler when it corrected back. This retracement was about 38%. And I showed the falling wedge, and the breakout was before the breakout, but we got the breakout in early September. But we have another bullish pattern taking shape. It's the cup with handle. So you can see here, you had a pullback, you had a run to resistance, you hit resistance, you had another pullback that's shallower, and now we're pushing up against resistance. So we got overhead supply here around 320 with a couple of highs there. And if we can break out, that would signal a victory of demand over supply and be bullish for Zscaler. If you look at the price relative, it turned up in September and is rising. Now, I will admit that this stock does have above average volatility because you could get some noise next week. We got a lot of earnings. We have a meeting with President Trump and Xi in South Korea. So that could sway the markets. But right now, this trend is up. We're challenging resistance, and a breakout signals a continuation higher. All right, so that is a wrap. Basically, we're in a bull market. All right, SPY and QQQ near 52-week highs above their 200 days. Technology, utilities, industrials are leading, and you can see that XLK is the biggest gainer year to date. Also has over 70% of stocks in long-term uptrends above their 200-day EMAs. We're seeing strength throughout the technology sector. I highlighted cybersecurity and two stocks with bullish cup with handle patterns. So I will be following up on these stocks, these setups, and more at TrendInvestorPro.com. So come and take a trial. You can get full access for just taking a trial. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and have a great day.